Captain Jake Anders had always believed the universe had a sense of humor, mostly at his expense. His ship, the Rust Bucket's Revenge, was a flying contradiction. Old, loud, and held together by prayer, luck, and industrial-grade duct tape. Yet somehow it kept him alive through asteroid storms, pirate ambushes, and one very awkward karaoke night on Titan Station. He was used to chaos, used to grease stains and broken engines, but he wasn't used to her. She stood at the docking ramp, haloed by the glow of the station lights. Tall, elegant, and otherworldly, literally. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, shifting with shades of violet when she moved. Her hair fell in smooth, dark ribbons that caught the light like strands of starlight, and her eyes, stars above her eyes, looked like they remembered galaxies he had never seen. "Captain Anders," she said, her voice melodic yet commanding, "you are late." Jake blinked. He'd seen aliens before, fought beside them, played cards with a few, but this one made him forget how to speak for a solid 5 seconds. "Sorry," he said at last, forcing a grin. "You know how it is, warp storms, faulty thrusters, hangovers." Her silver brows lifted. "You're mocking me already." He shrugged. "I mock everyone equally, it's a gift." She tilted her head, observing him the way a scientist studies a strange insect. Humans are strange creatures. You meet authority with humor. Jake smiled wider, keeps the panic away. There was a pause, then softly, unexpectedly, she smiled back. It was small, almost shy, but it hit him harder than any laser blast. "I am Sarai of Lyra Prime," she said, stepping forward. "Inspector of foreign vessels. I am to review your ship before docking clearance." Jake gave a mock salute. "Captain Jake Anders, smuggler, mechanic, part-time comedian." She frowned slightly. "Comedian?" "Yeah," he said, tapping the side of his head. "It's my survival skill. When in doubt, make M laugh. If that fails, run." Her gaze lingered on him. There was something behind her eyes, curiosity maybe, or amusement. "You are different from the other humans I've met." "Good different, I hope." "Debatable." Jake chuckled. "So, what now, Inspector Sarai? You're going to look over my ship and tell me how ugly she is." Sarai's lips twitched again. "If your ship reflects your personality, Captain, I am already concerned." That made him laugh out loud. "Fair enough, but don't insult her too much. She gets jealous." As they walked through the narrow corridors of the Rust Bucket's Revenge, Sarai trailed a hand along the walls, her expression a mixture of wonder and disgust. "This vessel is primitive." "Hey," Jake said, "she's got personality." "She has rust." "That too." Sarai crouched beside a patched conduit and frowned. "Did you seal this with adhesive tape?" Jake puffed out his chest proudly. "High-grade space duct tape. Holds up in vacuum, radiation, and awkward silences." Her head turned slowly toward him. "You humans use tape to fix your machines." "It's tradition," he said, grinning. "Duct tape and optimism, the twin engines of humanity." Sarai blinked, trying to decide if he was joking. "Optimism," she said softly. "Yes, I have read of this. The human habit of believing everything will work out even when it shouldn't." Jake smirked. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "I say that like it is, reckless." "Then you get us," he said. For a moment she looked at him, really looked. The air between them shifted. There was a faint hum from the ship's reactor, a flicker of light across her silver skin, and Jake felt the oddest sensation, like the universe had just leaned closer to listen. "Tell me something," she said suddenly. "Do you always joke when you are nervous?" He froze. "Am I nervous?" Her eyes glimmered with amusement. "Your pulse is elevated, your eyes avoid mine, and your humor, it is your armor." Jake laughed softly, running a hand through his messy hair. "You read people like instruction manuals, don't you?" "I read you," she said, stepping closer, "and I know you think I'm beautiful." The words hit him like a meteor. For once, Jake Anders, the man who could talk his way out of any customs inspection, had nothing clever to say. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. That's forward. Her smile deepened, playful now. It's truth. Humans are terrible at hiding it. Jake cleared his throat. And Lyrians are terrible at pretending not to notice. She tilted her head again, that musical voice soft but teasing. Perhaps, but tell me, Captain, will you joke your way through the entire inspection? He grinned. If it keeps you smiling, yeah. For a heartbeat, Sarai said nothing. Then, to his delight, she laughed. A clear, silver sound that filled the ship and made even the old metal seem alive. Jake didn't know it then, but that laugh would stay with him, echoing long after stars and silence swallowed the distance between them. And maybe, just maybe, that was how every great adventure began. The inspection should have taken 20 minutes. For Sarai of Lyra Prime, it stretched into hours, long, frustrating, oddly fascinating hours. Jake followed her through every corridor like an overexcited puppy, arms crossed, half smiling, half annoying. His boots clanked on the metal floor while Sarai moved in quiet, graceful steps, scanning everything with a small silver device that hummed softly in her hand. Your oxygen filters are 2 years past their service date, she said flatly. They still breathe fine, Jake replied. Smell a little like burnt toast, but that's character. She gave him a sharp look. Character is not a replacement for safety. He leaned against the wall and grinned. Tell that to half the human race. Sarai's lips pressed together in that way that said she was trying not to smile. Jake noticed. Oh, he noticed. He wasn't used to someone like her, calm, precise, with that faint air of mystery that made his pulse quicken for no logical reason. Everything about her was so perfect. Her voice, her movements, even the way she frowned looked elegant. It was unfair. Nobody should look that good while lecturing him about maintenance logs. You think this is funny? She asked, glancing up from the scanner. A little, Jake admitted. You, me, this old bucket of bolts, we make quite a picture. Sarai sighed, running a hand through her glowing hair. You are impossible. Thanks, he said cheerfully. I work hard at it. Her scanner beeped again. She frowned. The energy readings in your reactor are unstable. Your core is held together by, she leaned closer, squinting, by 3 bolts and a prayer. Jake rubbed the back of his neck. 2 bolts, actually. One fell off last week. Sarai turned slowly, eyes wide in disbelief. And you are alive. For now, he said with a shrug, I'm like a cockroach hard to kill. For a moment, Sarai just stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, soft at first, then brighter, freer. The sound filled the engine room like sunlight through smoke. Jake grinned, pretending to be offended. Hey, I didn't say I was that funny. You are absurd, she said, still smiling. No wonder your species survived the dark centuries. You refuse to die even when logic says you should. He placed a hand on his chest. That's humanity's secret weapon, pure, stubborn optimism. Sarai tilted her head, her expression softening. Optimism, she repeated quietly. Lyrians used to have that, before the silence. Jake blinked, the silence. Her gaze drifted to the flickering reactor lights. A war that took the color out of our stars. After that, we stopped believing in luck or laughter. Her voice changed, lower, distant, almost fragile. Jake felt something twist inside him. He wanted to say something smart, something to lift the mood, but the words felt heavy in his throat. Hey, he said finally, his voice gentle. Maybe that's why the universe keeps throwing us together, to remind you that sometimes things do work out, even with only 2 bolts and a prayer. Sarai turned to him slowly, her eyes unreadable, a storm behind glass. For a second, Jake thought he had said something wrong. Then she smiled, a soft, tired smile that looked like the first sunrise after a long night. You believe that, don't you? She said. Every day, Jake replied. If I didn't, I'd have crashed a long time ago. She stared at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes he hadn't seen before, not just curiosity, but warmth, maybe even hope. Then the ship jolted suddenly, a loud bang echoing through the hull. Warning lights flared red. Jake groaned. Speak of the devil, I knew the reactor was jealous. What was that? Sarai demanded, grabbing the console. Minor malfunction, Jake said, flipping switches. Or a major one, hard to tell sometimes. She scowled. You call this flying? More like surfing the edge of disaster, he said with a grin. Hold on. The ship shuddered again, throwing her forward. She stumbled right into him. His hands caught her instinctively, steadying her. For a second, they froze like that, close enough for Jake to feel the warmth of her skin, the faint hum that seemed to pulse through her body like electricity. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Then, as quickly as it began, the tremor passed. The lights flickered back to normal. Sarai stepped back, her silver cheeks faintly tinted violet, Lyrian blush, he guessed. You are reckless, she murmured. Jake smiled softly. You keep saying that like it's an insult. She turned away, pretending to check her scanner again, but he caught the curve of her lips as she tried not to smile. Maybe, just maybe, under that perfect alien calm, she liked the chaos. And Jake Anders, he was starting to think he liked her. The stars outside the viewport were calm that morning, too calm, Jake thought. Space had that sneaky habit of pretending everything was fine before throwing something terrifying at you. He was halfway through his second cup of synthetic coffee when the alarm began to howl. A sharp, rising tone echoed through the ship, followed by the red flicker of warning lights. Sarai appeared in the doorway, graceful even in a hurry, her silver skin glowing faintly in the crimson light. What did you do this time? She asked, voice steady but sharp. Jake pointed at the console. Not me, something happening out there, look. The ship's scanner displayed a swirling cloud of energy, pulsing with electric blue light. A nebula, unstable, alive, and far too close for comfort. Sarai leaned over the screen, eyes narrowing. That's a gravity eddy. It's forming faster than normal. There's a ship inside it. Jake frowned. What kind of ship? Freighter, civilian model. His jaw tightened, and it's trapped. Sarai looked up at him. We can't reach them. The pull is too strong. Jake grabbed his jacket. Can't isn't in my vocabulary. She crossed her arms. I've read your vocabulary. It's mostly curse words. Yeah, he said, grinning. And right now they're all aimed at gravity. Before she could argue, he was already at the pilot's seat, strapping in. Hold tight, princess. We're going in. Sarai blinked. You're insane. Probably, but I'm charming, so it balances out. The ship lurched forward, engines roaring as they plunged into the swirling blue mist. The nebula was chaos made visible. Lightning arched between pockets of dust and gas, painting the cockpit in flashes of white and violet. The controls shook violently under Jake's hands. Shields are dropping, Sarai shouted, checking the readouts. You'll tear the hull apart. Not if you keep that fancy alien magic running, Jake yelled back. It's not magic, it's quantum energy modulation. Great, use more of it. The freighter appeared ahead, spinning helplessly, half of its hull glowing from overheating thrusters. Its distress beacon flickered weakly. Jake's pulse quickened. Hang on, old girl, we're coming. He flicked a switch. The rust bucket's revenge groaned in protest. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and Sarai hissed as smoke filled the cabin. You're going to kill us. Not today, Jake shouted, hands steady, eyes locked on the freighter. I've got an idea. Sarai glanced at him. You always say that, and it's never a good one. That's the fun part. He rerouted the power from the auxiliary thrusters directly into the tractor beam. It was an insane move, but insanity had saved him more than logic ever did. The ship screamed as the engines overloaded, but the beam connected. The freighter's rotation slowed. Sarai grabbed the controls beside him, lending her strength to his. "You're burning out the stabilizers." Jake grinned through the chaos. "Then we'll fly crooked together." The nebula raged around them, waves of gravity distorting light and sound. Jake's heart pounded like a drum. He felt Sarai's shoulder press against his, steady and warm. Their eyes met briefly, and in that impossible moment, surrounded by fire, smoke, and cosmic madness, they both smiled. Then, with one last groan, the rust bucket pulled free. The freighter drifted behind them out of danger. The blue light faded. Silence returned. Jake exhaled hard and leaned back. "Told you duct tape and optimism always win." Sarai stared at him, chest rising and falling fast. You risked everything for strangers." He turned his head toward her, his grin softening. "That's kind of what we do, isn't it? Humans, I mean. We make bad decisions with good hearts." Sarai didn't answer right away. She looked at him, really looked. Her violet eyes glimmered in the fading blue light, reflecting something deeper than admiration. "You are reckless," she said finally, voice quiet, "but you are brave." Jake smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." "Still taking it." For a long moment, the two of them sat in the quiet hum of the ship, surrounded by the echo of fading stars. Then Sarai said softly, "When the nebula closed and I thought we might die, you laughed." Jake blinked. "Did I?" "You did, you humans. You laugh at death." He shrugged, smiling faintly. "Maybe we just like to make it nervous." Sarai laughed, really laughed this time, the sound bright and alive against the dull hum of the engines. Jake looked at her, heart beating faster than he wanted to admit. She shook her head, smiling at him through the soft glow of the consoles. "You are impossible, Jake Anders." "Yeah," he said, his voice low but warm. "But admit it, you'd miss me if I was." Her smile lingered, her eyes meeting his. "Perhaps," she whispered, "but don't make me prove it." Outside, the nebula faded into calm stars, and for the first time, Jake thought space didn't seem so lonely. The storm had passed. The nebula's light faded behind them, and space opened up again, wide, dark, peaceful. But inside the rust bucket's revenge, everything still felt like it was spinning. The ship limped through the quiet, engines humming softly. Panels flickered. Smoke still drifted lazily through the cockpit. Jake sat slouched in his chair, his hair a mess, his hands still trembling just a little. Sarai stood beside him, staring at the stars through the cracked viewport. Her silver skin shimmered in the faint glow of the console lights. For the first time since he met her, she looked shaken. "You're awfully quiet," Jake said, breaking the silence. His voice was softer than usual, without the usual layer of humor. She didn't turn to face him. "We could have died." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, but we didn't." "That isn't the point." "Then what is?" Her eyes glimmered, reflecting the starlight. "You treat death like a joke, Captain Anders. You fly into danger without thinking. You risk your life for strangers, for me. Why?" Jake leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Because that's what we do. Because if someone's out there needing help, you help, even if it's stupid." Sarai frowned. "That isn't logic." He chuckled quietly. "Nope, it's humanity." She turned finally, arms folded, her tone somewhere between anger and curiosity. "You humans, you are fragile. You break so easily, and yet you act like you're unbreakable." Jake looked up at her. "Maybe that's what makes us strong." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, but not cold. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, like the air before lightning. Sarai moved closer, her eyes soft now. "When the nebula closed around us, I felt something I have not felt in years." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Terror." Her lips twitched slightly. "Number hope." That caught him off guard. "Hope." "Yes." She took another step closer. "I thought we were going to die, and yet, when I looked at you, you were laughing. You were smiling at the end, as if it didn't matter." Jake shrugged. It mattered, but if that was my last moment, I wanted it to be a good one. I didn't want fear to win. Sarai studied him quietly, her expression unreadable. You're strange. Thank you, he said. Takes effort. That earned him the smallest laugh, quiet, genuine. Do you always joke when you feel something? She asked. He tilted his head. What feelings? Those weird emotional things. Yeah, humor's my way of keeping them from getting too loud. She smiled faintly. That is very human. He smiled back. That's the nicest insult anyone ever given me. For a moment the cockpit was filled with something soft, not laughter, not words, just the quiet sound of two people breathing the same air. The hum of the ship, the faint sparkle of stars outside, and the warmth between them. Sarai leaned against the console beside him, her gaze drifting back to the stars. You surprise me, Jake Anders. When I first met you, I thought you were arrogant, careless. And now? Now, she hesitated. You are still those things, but also brave and kind and complicated. Jake chuckled. You forgot handsome. Her eyes flicked toward him, amused. No, I didn't. Jake blinked, caught off guard by her tone, low, teasing, almost intimate. Well, he said softly, that's going to make the rest of this trip interesting. Sarai smiled faintly, then looked back at the stars again. Perhaps. For a while they just watched the stars in silence. The universe stretched before them, vast, endless, and strangely beautiful. Then Sarai spoke again, her voice quieter now. You asked earlier about the silence, the war that changed us. Jake nodded. Yeah. We lost too much, she said. Too many lives, too much laughter. The Lyrians stopped believing in things we couldn't control. Hope became dangerous. He listened carefully. For once, he didn't interrupt or make a joke. Sarai turned to face him. But you, humans, you carry hope like a weapon, you laugh at death. You build something new from ruins, I envy that. Jake met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Maybe we just never learned when to give up. Sarai smiled softly, her eyes glowing like stars reflected in water. Then perhaps the universe needs more of you. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper, and maybe I needed to meet you. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The hum of the ship filled the air between them. Then the radio crackled suddenly, breaking the spell. A voice came through, sharp, official. Lyrian patrol to unidentified vessel. Respond immediately. Sarai straightened, her calm mask returning in an instant. That's my fleet. Jake leaned back with a groan. Figures. Romance never lasts long in space. Sarai gave him one last look, a mix of amusement and something deeper. We'll see, Captain. As the stars shifted outside, Jake couldn't help but smile. He had survived storms, saved lives, and maybe, just maybe, started something impossible. And somewhere inside, he hoped it wasn't over yet. The rust bucket's Revenge docked at the Lyrian outpost like a tired old bird landing after a long storm. The engines hissed, the hull groaned, and Jake muttered under his breath, Don't fall apart now, sweetheart. We're trying to look impressive. Sarai stood beside him, calm as always, though her face was unreadable. She'd been quiet since the patrol's message. Too quiet. Her silver eyes were distant, her hands clasped neatly behind her back, like she was bracing for something. Jake couldn't stand silence for long. So, what's the plan, Inspector? He asked lightly. You gonna turn me in for flying with a faulty reactor and an overconfident smile? Not yet, she said without looking at him. My commander will want to report first. Ah, the famous Lyrian commander, Jake said, grinning. Can't wait to meet the guy. Maybe he'll finally appreciate my charm. Sarai glanced at him, a look that said, Don't push your luck. The airlock opened with a hiss, and there he was, tall, regal, and made of the same silver-violet light as Sarai, but colder somehow. Commander Veyron of Lyra Prime. His expression could have frozen fire. Inspector Sarai, he said coolly, You were assigned to oversee this human vessel. I did not expect personal involvement. Sarai bowed her head slightly. Sir, we encountered a gravity eddy. The human captain assisted in the rescue of a civilian freighter. Without him, hundreds would have acted recklessly, I'm sure, Varen interrupted. His gaze turned to Jake. And you must be the famous human who thinks duct tape is a sacred technology. Jake gave a half salute, half shrug. Hey, it's held more ships together than most peace treaties. A few Lyrian officers snickered quietly. The commander didn't. His eyes narrowed. You mock even now. Jake smiled easily. That's kind of my thing. Varen turned to Sarai. He's dangerous. His kind always are. You let him influence you. Sarai stiffened. With respect, sir, I make my own choices. Jake noticed the way her tone changed, formal, guarded, distant, like a wall rising between them. Commander, Jake said, trying to cut the tension, don't be too hard on her. I mean, who wouldn't be influenced by me? I'm charming, handsome, modest. Varen's eyes went icy. You overstep human. The room went silent. Jake realized too late that his joke hadn't landed, not even close. Sarai's head turned sharply toward him, her face pale. Jake, she hissed quietly, stop. He blinked. What, I'm just... Enough, she said, voice trembling not with anger but something heavier. Varen nodded once. Inspector, you will return to Lyra Prime immediately. This mission is concluded. Jake felt a knot twist in his chest. Wait, that's it. After everything we did out there. Sarai didn't answer. She stood perfectly still, her hands tight at her sides. The commander's voice was final. You are dismissed, Captain Anders. Consider yourself fortunate that your recklessness did not cause her death. Jake wanted to argue, but Sarai's expression stopped him cold. She wouldn't even meet his eyes. When the Lyrians left, the ship felt empty, hollow in a way he hadn't felt since before she'd arrived. He sat in the cockpit later, staring at the dark stretch of space beyond the viewport. The stars looked farther away tonight. He heard her footsteps before she spoke. Jake, Sarai said softly. He turned in his seat. So, that went well. Her eyes flickered, but there was no laughter this time. You embarrassed me. He frowned. What? I was just joking. Exactly, she said sharply. Always joking, even when everything is falling apart around you. He stood up. That's how I deal with it, Sarai. That's how humans deal with it. We laugh so we don't break. She looked at him, her voice trembling slightly. And do you think laughter will fix everything? He met her gaze. No, but it keeps me from giving up. The silence that followed hurt more than shouting would have. Finally, Sarai whispered, You don't understand. Among my people, emotions are dangerous. They cloud duty. And you make me forget that. Jake's chest tightened. Is that such a bad thing? Her eyes shone silver and sad. For me, yes. He wanted to reach for her, to say something, anything that could pull her back. But she stepped away first. I leave in the morning, she said quietly. Goodbye, Captain. And then she was gone. Jake stood there for a long time, staring at the door she just walked through. The air felt heavier. The hum of the ship sounded lonelier. He slumped back into the pilot's chair, whispering to no one, Yeah, good night, Inspector. Outside, the stars glittered, cold and distant, as if they were laughing at him this time. The next morning arrived too soon. The Lyrian shuttle gleamed silver against the dull metal of the docking bay, perfect and cold, just like everything about their people. Sarai stood near the ramp, her uniform spotless, her hair tied neatly, her expression unreadable. Jake watched her from the shadows of his ship's open hatch, hands in his pockets, heart pounding like a faulty engine. He didn't sleep. He tried to convince himself to let her go, that it was her world, her rules, her duty. But his heart had other plans. She turned slightly, catching sight of him. For a moment, neither moved. Came to say goodbye properly, she asked, her voice calm but soft. Jake forced a grin. You make it sound like we're never gonna see each other again." "Because we won't," she said gently. "Lyrians do not return to unfinished missions." He stepped closer. "Guess it's a good thing I'm terrible at finishing anything." She almost smiled, almost, then looked away. "Jake, please don't make this harder." He stopped beside her, close enough to see his reflection in her silver eyes. "You think I can just watch you walk away, after everything we went through?" "It wasn't supposed to be anything," she said, her voice trembling despite her calm tone. "You were a mission." Jake's smile faded. "A mission?" She hesitated. "You were meant to be observed, to study human behavior under stress. Your courage, your humor, your chaos. That was the point." He laughed once bitterly. "So that's it, huh? The jokes, the smiles, all part of a research report." Her expression softened. "No, that part wasn't supposed to happen." "Then what was it, Sarai?" he asked, his voice quiet now. "What did happen?" She looked at him for a long time before whispering, "You happened." Jake's chest tightened. For a moment neither spoke. The air between them hummed, heavy with all the words they hadn't said. Then the shuttle's engine powered on, breaking the moment like shattering glass. Commander Varen appeared at the ramp, his voice cold and sharp. "Inspector Sarai, time to depart." She turned, but Jake stepped forward. "Hold on, just 1 second." Varen's eyes narrowed. "Humans, stand down." Jake ignored him. He looked at Sarai, his voice steady but filled with fire. "You once said humans are reckless. You were right. We are. We jump before thinking. We laugh when we should cry, but that's what makes us alive." "Jake." He shook his head. "No, you told me to stop joking when I care. So here it is, no jokes. I don't care what your commander says or what your rules are. You belong where you want to be. And if that's not here, fine. But if it is." He stepped closer, close enough to feel her warmth, to smell the faint metallic sweetness of her skin. "Then don't leave." Varen's voice boomed behind them. "Enough." 2 Lyrian guards moved forward, but Sarai raised her hand, and they stopped instantly. She turned back to Jake, eyes wide, voice trembling. "You don't understand what this means. If I stay, I lose everything." He smiled sadly. "Yeah, but maybe you find something else." For a long, suspended moment, she didn't move. The hum of the engines, the echo of their breathing, everything hung still. Then with a shiver of light, she reached up and touched his cheek. Her fingers were cool and soft, but her touch burned through him like fire. "You shouldn't have done this," she whispered. "Yeah," he said, his voice shaking. "But I'm human, bad at rules, great at falling for impossible women." Her eyes filled with emotion, something he hadn't seen before in any Lyrian. Raw, aching feeling. The commander's voice cut through the silence again. "Sarai, now." She looked back once, her lips trembling. "Goodbye, Jake Anders." Before he could stop her, she leaned in and kissed him. It was brief but powerful, like lightning striking between 2 worlds. Every sound faded. Every thought vanished. When she pulled away, he saw tears shining like liquid silver at the corners of her eyes. And then she was gone, walking up the ramp without looking back. The shuttle lifted off, its engines glowing bright. Jake stood there, staring at the empty air where she'd stood, feeling like part of him had left with her. The hangar lights dimmed, leaving the rust bucket's revenge bathed in shadows. Jake rubbed his eyes and exhaled a shaky breath. "Well," he muttered, forcing a grin even as his heart ached, "guess that's one hell of a goodbye." The ship's AI crackled to life, its voice dry as static. "Captain, emotional distress detected. Shall I play sad human music?" Jake laughed weakly. "Yeah, go ahead, something tragic, but make it upbeat." As the old music filled the cabin, Jake leaned against the hull, looking out at the stars. He didn't know if he'd ever see her again. But he knew one thing for sure: no distance, no duty, no alien rules could make him forget the way she'd looked at him before she left. Somewhere out there, among the billions of stars, a Lyrian woman was flying away. and Jake Anders, fool hero human, had every intention of finding her again. 3 weeks had passed since Sarai left, 3 long, quiet weeks. The rust bucket's revenge drifted through empty space like a lonely ghost. The hum of the engine sounded slower, sadder, or maybe it was just Jake hearing things. He'd fixed the cracked panels, scrubbed the smoke stains, even replaced the duct tape with proper welds, but the ship didn't feel the same. Everywhere he looked, he saw her. The faint mark on the wall where she'd leaned during inspections. The chair she'd sat in, legs crossed, scolding him for his recklessness. Even the tiny hairline scratch on the control screen, she'd left that there with her scanner. He missed her laugh, that soft, silver sound that made the universe feel a little less empty. He tried to bury it under jokes, tried to distract himself with cargo runs, poker nights, bad space noodles, but nothing worked. Humor couldn't fix this one. He found himself sitting alone in the cockpit most nights, staring at the stars. Sometimes he talked to them, mostly nonsense, mostly about her. "Hope you're out there, Sarai," he muttered one evening, tapping his cup against the console. "Probably flying something shiny and perfect. Meanwhile, I'm still talking to myself and drinking recycled coffee." The ship's AI chimed softly. "Captain, you have an incoming signal." Jake frowned. "From who? I'm not expecting any." "Unknown source. Encrypted Lyrian frequency." He froze, his heart kicked in his chest. "Patch it through." Static filled the cockpit for a moment. Then her voice. Soft, clear, familiar. "Hello, Captain Anders." Jake nearly fell out of his chair. "Sarai. I know you think I'm beautiful." He laughed, breathless. "Oh, come on, that's not fair. You can't just open with that." "Then I know you remember," she said, her voice gentle. "You humans, you forget everything but feelings." Jake swallowed hard. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "I am safe," she said, "but not where I wish to be. My commander believes I have accepted my duties again. He is wrong." He leaned forward, gripping the edge of the console. "You ran." "Not yet," she said softly, "but soon. I sent this message on a private channel. They will trace it in minutes. I needed you to hear me before that happens." Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. "You didn't have to risk that." "I did," she replied, "because I realized something in that storm, Jake. You humans, you carry hope like fire. You burn bright even when everything around you falls apart. And somehow you made me believe again." Jake smiled weakly. "That's what we do, annoy the galaxy and make it fall for us." He heard her soft laugh through the static, the sound he'd missed more than he could admit. "I don't know when I can come back," she said, "but I want you to know this, I haven't forgotten. The nebula, the duct tape, the laughter. You showed me that the universe isn't as cold as I thought." He blinked fast, trying to hide the wetness in his eyes. "You know," he said, "you've got this effect on me. Makes it hard to look cool." "Then stop trying to be," she teased. "You were better when you were foolish." He laughed softly. "Guess that's the only thing I'm good at." "No," she whispered. "You're good at making people feel alive." For a moment neither spoke. The signal flickered, the static growing louder. "Sarai," Jake said quickly, "don't go yet." "I have to," she said, her voice fatting. "But I'll find you again. When I do, maybe I'll let you win an argument for once." He grinned through the ache. "Deal, but I expect a rematch in person." "Until then, keep laughing, Jake Anders. The stars listen when you do." The transmission cut out. The cockpit fell silent again. Jake sat there, staring at the blank screen, listening to the hum of his ship. Then, slowly, a smile crept across his face. He looked out at the stars, endless, bright, scattered like diamonds on black velvet, and whispered, "I'll be here, Sarai. Don't take too long." The stars twinkled in response, and for a heartbeat, he could almost swear they laughed with him. Jake leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms behind his head. "All right, girl," he said to the Rust Bucket's Revenge. "Looks like we've got a new mission. Find one impossible woman in a very big galaxy. The ship's AI beeped, setting course. He grinned, anywhere she might be. Engines rumbled to life, soft and eager. The old ship turned toward the distant horizon of light. And as it sailed forward, through the silence and starlight, Jake felt something warm bloom in his chest again. That reckless, ridiculous human hope that never quite died. Somewhere out there she was flying too. And someday, somehow, their paths would cross again. Because in a universe full of darkness, laughter always finds a way to shine.